The Kathasaritsagara's first story is about Shiva and Parvati living in the Himalayas, and they are surrounded by celestial beings that live there. What this story is really about is the voice that keeps talking to us in our mind. How we interact with that voice in our mind is the most important thing we have to do in life. What we do and who we become all flow from this conversation that goes in our consciousness. This voice will tell us stories where we are the main characters. Sometimes, these stories are about how great and glorious we are, and how people find us so attractive, glamorous, or powerful. Other times, these stories are about how alone we are in the world, that no one is there to help us, and that our enemies have achieved a great victory over us. And other times, these stories will make us doubt everything we actually believe in, and make us redirect all our thoughts to look for truth and to look for God. So what is this voice? Who is speaking? Why is it there? Does it have that much control over us? Can we control it? All of these questions lead us to this first story of Shiva and Parvati on the mountain. In the same way that there is a voice telling us stories, existence itself has many voices telling itself such stories. The mind is many, so the voices are many. This listening to this inner voice of the mind is represented by Shiva, who is consciousness, mind, logical analysis, and in this first story, he is the storyteller. It is also represented by Parvati, who is energy, matter, existence, and in this first story, she is the one listening to the story. This story describes Shiva and Parvati living in the Himalayas, surrounded by celestial beings who are there because they love the gods. This is the foundation of the Kathasaritsagara, and also the foundation that we can build our life on. Parvati and Shiva are living together in the Himalayas is clearly a story. It has a beginning in time, somewhere in the far past, but actually it represents a divine reality that is eternal and beyond time. This reality existed before man, woman, and mountains. What should we think about when we hear this story? We need to be transformed into divine beings by seeing divine stories happening in our minds. Majesty and glory are granted to whomever is witness to the secret stories that the goddess projects to herself from herself. All the stories that follow in the Kathasaritsagara will help us understand the voice that keeps talking to us in our mind. Through a refocusing of that voice, we will be pushed to transform ourselves into what will make us appreciate life to a new level. There is a mountain celebrated under the name of Himavat, haunted by Kinnaras, Gandharvas, and Vidyadharas, a very monarch of mighty hills, whose glory has attained such an eminence among mountains that Bhavani, the mother of the three worlds, deigned to become his daughter. The northernmost summit thereof is a great peak named Kailasha, which towers many thousand yojanas in the air. Let's analyze the role and function of this story. It is a frame narrative that connects all the other stories to it. As a frame narrative, its purpose is to create a window from which we can see all the other stories. The true hidden purpose of the story, however, is to make us think about how existence actually works. The whole of existence has all the elements of storytelling. Existence is divided to fit aspects of storytelling, and the more these aspects are divided, the more they become separate entities, which become distinct from each other. Everything then has a story, and so, because everything has a story, then everything contains all the elements that make up a story. A story is a manifestation of order, with a sequence of elements and events, made with a purpose. A story has required these kinds of elements for it to function. It needs a setting where it unfolds, a set of characters with their motivations that shape it, events that push it forward and forces characters to develop, and lastly, an audience to witness it. For a story to function, it needs actions to happen, and for reactions to follow. And those reactions, usually by the characters in that story, cause reactions in the audience and the readers, which is us, like ripples in the water. Things are happening because action is inevitable, so we have no choice but to go through the chain of events that one decision leads. Once on a time that Lord, the husband of Parvati, was gratified with praises by his wife, having gained confidence as she sat in secret with him. The moon-crested one, attentive to her praise and delighted, placed her on his lap, and said, "What can I do to please you?" Then the daughter of the mountain said, "My lord, if you are satisfied with me, then tell me some delightful story that is quite new." And Shiva said to her, "What can there be in the world, my beloved, present, past, or future, that you do not know?" Then that goddess, beloved of Shiva, importuned him eagerly, because she was proud in soul on account of his affection. Then Shiva, wishing to flatter her, began by telling her a very short story, referring to her own divine power. Why does Parvati want to hear a story? Let's understand some philosophical and theological concepts to appreciate this development in the story. The goddess is existence herself, and in her are contained all possible things. She emanates the countless differences between aspects of herself to unfold the numerous possible sequences that are present in her. She is also the setting herself, which is the world we live in. Inside this world, there are some places that are higher than others. In this way, the majestic mountains where she decides to live and reveal her qualities of majesty, power, and eminence. These aspects are what we find attractive in life. We want to achieve success, increase in stature, and be proud of what we have gained. She is also the characters that live in the setting, and these characters, like us, are aspects of herself who experience the many things life has to offer. To experience the various aspects of existence requires consciousness, so every part of herself which reflects and thinks, which emanates from Shiva, is an aspect of herself, divided into separate beings. Witness to this interaction between reality and the mind are celestial beings, who vary in rank and power among themselves, because by looking at herself through different perspectives, from different minds, she sees the multiple, deep, intricate levels which are contained inside her. Life is amazing because she is amazing. Life is glorious because she is glorious. Life is joyful because she is joy. Some aspects of reality are secret and can only be known by a few. Why does it matter so much that this is the first story? Because just as the other stories are seen through the first story itself, the lives we experience have to be seen through a divine perspective. Stories are not just there to pass the time. We live the stories that we hear so we can add something to our life by gaining insight and wisdom so that we can avoid the mistakes that are waiting and overcome the challenges that are coming straight at us. Every religion tells stories about God, holy people, and heroes. There is something essential in seeing the world through a story. We can process a story because it was made in the best possible way for us to understand it. The voice in our head must be understood as a story. Otherwise, it's full of confusion, leading us here and there. We can listen to this voice, let it play out in our minds, and see where it leads us. By learning how other characters react to such stories, we can avoid the mistakes they make or look forward to their success. And by training our minds, we can direct that voice to give us the stories that we need to hear.